Alright, in this video, we're going to take a look at solving two-step equations. Now, take a look, when I go through this problem, specifically how I show work and what I do when I've solved the equation, like what comes next, because this is what I expect work to look like when we're in our algebra class. So, the first thing I want to talk about is we are now working in equations. So, first thing you notice is we're not just in expressions, we have equal signs. And on the left of the equal sign, we would call this one side of our equation. On the right side of our equal sign, this would be the other side of our equation. So we've got these two sides. Another difference, besides just the equal sign, between expressions and equations is that when we had variables or a variable before in an expression, that variable was just a placeholder for some value. And then eventually we would be told, hey, here's the value of x in this expression. You can evaluate and simplify. Now, this is different in an equation. In an equation, there is one single value for the variable that makes this equation true. So that you would take a number, multiply it by -9, and add 1 to get -80. There's only one number that works in this case. So, we're going to go about solving this and finding that one value that makes this equation equal to -80. So first thing I want to do, on the side of the equation with my variable, which is in this case the left side, I'm going to find the constant and add the opposite of the constant to both sides. So right now my constant is 1. I'm going to add the opposite of 1. The opposite of 1 is -1, so I'm going to add -1 to the left side of my equation. I'm going to add -1 to the right side of my equation. Now why do I do that? Well, I want this constant to become 0. And I can keep my equation equal as long as I add the same value to both sides. So any number plus its opposite will give you 0. So this gives you 0. Cancels, how we would say that. And we're left with -9x on the left side equals, now -80 plus -1 is -81. Now, next thing I want to do on this is multiply or divide to make the coefficients of the variable 1. So I'm looking for that coefficient of the variable. In this case, my coefficient of my variable is -9. And I want to divide here so that when I divide by some number, that coefficient in front of x becomes 1. Because what I want to do here is find the value of one single x, because that's what I'm going to put in here. It's the value of 1x. So the only number that I can divide by right here to make the coefficient equal to 1 would be -9. So basically I'm dividing by the coefficient, and I divide to keep this equal on the right side of the equation by the same number. So if I divide by -9 here, I must also divide by -9 on the right side of my equation, and this works out really nicely. -9 divided by -9 becomes 1x, or just x. And -81 divided by 9, so we've got a negative divided by a negative, that's positive. 81 divided by 9 is 9. And that seems like it's a reasonable answer. But part 3 to this, and yes, you have to do this every single time, is to check your solution. So either off to the side or below the problem, I'm going to put a check mark. And I'm going to rewrite my original equation, and in place of my x, I'm going to put the value that I think x is that makes this equation true, and I'm going to evaluate, times 9 plus 1 equals, I'm going to put a question mark above the equal sign, because right now I'm not really 100% sure that plugging in 9 will make this equal to -80, but we're going to find out. So I'm going to ignore the right side of my equation. I'm just going to look at the left. I'm going to do some simplifying. So order of operations, if I simplify this, I have to multiply. -9 times 9 is -81 plus 1. Does that equal -80? And you're thinking, okay, -81 plus +1 is -80. So in this case, yes, this is true. If I make x 9, then when I simplify the left side of my equation is equal to negative 80, which is what I want. I've got to get the left side of my equation, or the side with the variable, to simplify to the same number on the right side of my equation. So this shows me by checking the solution that 9 is the correct value for x, or is the solution when I solve. So let's look at another one. Number 2. First thing I want to do. Now, this time, my variables are on the right side of the equation. So, looking at the right side, here's my term with a variable. My constant is 5, so I'm going to subtract or add the opposite of 5 to both sides, which is negative 5. This becomes 0, or we say it cancels. Add negative 5 to negative 15 on the left side. Negative 15 plus negative 5 is negative 20. And that equals, what's left, negative 4m. Now, this is part 2. This time I'm going to divide to make the coefficient of m equal to 1. And I'm going to divide by negative 4, because negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. I'm left with m. Divide the left side by negative 4. Negative 20 divided by negative 4. Got that negative divided by negative, you get a positive. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Now, over here to the right, put your check mark. And in your original equation, we're going to plug in 5 in place of this m. And I want to know, is negative 15 equal to negative 4 times 5 plus 5? And we're going to go through and we're going to evaluate this right side. So negative 15, does that equal? Well, negative 4 times 5 is negative 20 plus 5. And some integer addition, negative 20 plus 5 is negative 15. And that is equal to negative 15, which tells me that this solution, m equals 5, is correct. So on these questions that you'll see as we go through algebra and as we go through solving, it'll ask, is 5 a solution to this equation? All you have to do is plug it in and check. And if you get one number equals the same number, it works. It's a solution. All right, let's go through and solve a couple more. So number 3, 10 minus 6x equals negative 104. Here's my left side of my equation. Here's my variable, negative 6x. Here's my constant 10. I'm going to add the opposite of 10, which is negative 10. That becomes 0. Add the same thing to the right side. And I'm left with negative 6x on the left side. Negative 104 plus negative 10 is negative 114. I'm going to divide negative 6x by negative 6, so I get the coefficient of 1, which gives me x. Divide the right side by the same number, negative 6. All right, 114 divided by 6. Let's think about this. Okay, so 6 goes into 11 once. And I know negative divided by negative is going to be positive. I have 5 left over. 54 divided by 6 is 9. Okay, that makes sense. So we're saying the value of x should be 19, but let's go ahead and check. Over to the right. 10 minus 6x equals negative 104. If I plug in 19, does that equal negative 104? So, negative 6 times 19. Can you guys do this in your head? 6 times 20 is 120. And then if you take away one set of 6, that would be negative 114. And is this true? 10 minus 114 equals negative 104. Make sure you see that this 114 is negative because it's got a minus sign in front of it. And that is indeed true. So this is equal to each other. Left side equals right side. So x equals 19 is your solution. All right. Let's take a look at 2 more. All right. On number 4. So we've got 8n plus 7 equals 31. Here's my left side with my variable. Here's my constant. I'm going to add the opposite of my constant, which is negative 7, to both sides. This leaves me with 8n. The 7's cancel. Equals 31 minus 7, or 31 plus negative 7. All right, what is that? 24. I need to divide by my coefficient of 8n, which is 8. That gives me 1n, or just n. Divide the right side by 8. 24 divided by 8 equals 3. Okay. And let's check this. This one should be fairly simple. So 8n plus 7 equals 31. I'm going to plug in 3 for n. 8 times 3 is 24. Plus 7. Does that equal 31? Well, yeah, it sure does. So that tells me that n is my correct solution here. All right, last one. So 9 plus 9x equals 9. Lots of 9s. Okay, on the left side of my equation, I've got my variable. 9 is my constant. I'm going to add the opposite of my constant. So that equals 0. I'm left with 9x. Add the same thing, negative 9, to the right side of my equation. Now, this confuses some students. Is it okay to get 9x equals, well, 9 plus 9 is 0. Is that okay? And the answer is yes. And you might be worried because you're like, oh no, I'm going to divide by the coefficients, and 0 divided by 9 is going to give me a value of x equals 0. That's okay. It's okay for your variable to be equal to 0 at any point in time. That's fine. It happens. We're just going to check to make sure that 9 plus 9x, when x equals 0, is in fact equivalent. I'm going to plug in 0 for x. I'm going to multiply. 9 times 0 is 0. 9 plus 0. Well, does that equal 9? And the answer is yes. So the value of x is equal to 0.